Welcome to the Body, Soul, and Spirit podcast. We've been talking about toxic behaviors, and the first one we talked about was manipulation. And it's important to identify these toxic behaviors, not only in other people, but even in ourselves. And it's important for us to identify them in others, not for criticism, but for our own protection and for our own health, emotionally and mentally. And in this podcast, it is my desire and really my intention to be able to recognize some of these toxic behaviors in ourselves. And I said last podcast that there's a big difference in making a mistake, because I think we can all say we've fallen short of some of these behaviors, and we probably have identified them in us at times, perhaps because of a lack of knowledge or because we made mistakes. But it's not intentional, and that's the difference. I want you to start to see it in terms of intent. When somebody does it intentionally, or they keep doing it, these are toxic behaviors. And these toxic behaviors, oftentimes when we see them in other relationships, can harm us. They can really hurt us. So we need to know how to handle relationships in a healthy way, setting boundaries, being able to say no when we need to. So we talked about manipulation, the first podcast as we started this series. And I said manipulation is really a form of control. It's indirect form of control. Somebody tries to influence you, or perhaps you try to control somebody's actions or their decisions just to serve an interest. And it's really done out of selfishness. So we talked about different types of manipulation. It could be passive-aggressive digs. Oh, well, I guess you're too busy. We tried to manipulate people by our behaviors, by not answering a text, by not calling somebody and letting them know how we are. Or perhaps because we just want to move away from that relationship because we have some emotional need. Now, I'm not talking about you maybe because of a healthy state of mind will require you to make some decisions, and that would require you to maybe not answer that text. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you have an emotional need and the response is an isolation. The response is, or the reaction is to maybe do some kind of comment, a dig, a punch. It could be indirectly, or it could be something like, well, I'm really sad because I really wanted you to be there, but I guess I understand. And so we really just give these digs. And it's important for us to recognize that if anybody's doing that to us. Another toxic behavior is called gaslighting. And this is also a toxic form of manipulation. It's a form of psychological abuse when somebody uses lies and they deceive to try to manipulate. They even do it to try to question yourself. And they almost make you feel like, wow, am I going crazy? And they mess with you. They manipulate you to get you to doubt your own, maybe even memory, or doubt your own perceptions, doubt your own instincts, what you know to be true or what you believe to be true. They want to exert power over you. And that's why they do it. So that maybe you don't leave them. So that maybe you do what they want you to do. I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody close to you is drinking heavily and they stopped and they started to maybe drink heavily again and you're concerned for them. And so you kindly and compassionately say, hey, what's going on? And then all of a sudden it gets turned around on you. And you are the one now they're accusing. You're crazy. You're paranoid. How dare you even accuse me? It's you. You're the reason why I'm doing this. So they really lie. They deceive to cover up their own tracks. And then they turn it on you to make you feel bad. This is important to recognize in other people as well as in us. Somebody may slander you behind your back, and then you confront it. Somebody's talking about you. Somebody is maybe making comments to another person about you, and then you confront it. And all of a sudden they deny it. Lies are usually involved with gaslighting. And they say something like, I would never. And then they turn it around on you. It's because you do this. And now you feel bad because you confronted them. This is toxic because you feel bad. And it leads to really a lot of chaos, and it leads to a lot of confusion in your own soul. We've got to be free of gaslighting. It's important for us to recognize it, identify it, so that we don't fall prey. You don't have to feel bad about caring for somebody else and maybe confronting them. Don't feel bad because you maybe confronted a friend that you maybe heard was talking bad about you. And all of a sudden that person starts to lie about it. They cover it up. They don't take responsibility for what they're saying. And now you want to fix it. You want to iron out that relationship, and they make you feel bad. They turn it around. Now it's you. You're the problem. This is important to identify in ourselves, also in others. The other one is constant criticism. This would be the third toxic behavior. Constant criticism. Now, I'm not talking about being able to receive constructive criticism, because we all need constructive criticism. That is part of our growth. We need those people that call things to our attention. We need the kind of people that will be honest with us. We need the kind of people that, let's say you're eating and you have spinach stuck in your teeth. You need the kind of people that will say, hey, go check that out. Go brush your teeth. We need people who help us. They do it out of love. They see blind spots and they point out the hard things in our lives. But see, that is rooted in trust. It's rooted in safety. It's rooted in mutual consent. Toxic behavior number 3 is constant criticism. It's like just verbal abuse. Consistently, continually, over time, they undermine you. They perceive flaws in you. They're looking at your flaws. Maybe you're that kind of person where all you see is the flaws. All you see is the bad. All you see is the bad in people. Maybe it shows up in a comment, or it shows up in a sarcasm, or it shows up in insults or in judgments. Are you really going to wear that? And there's constant sarcasm or comments, jabs, insults. You're the target of the constant criticism. And that is painful because it's like getting 1,000 paper cuts and they leave you feeling wounded. So I'm not talking about constructive criticism. I'm talking about passive aggressive comments, constantly pointing out somebody's flaws. That is toxic. These are critics. If you're not doing good, they're really quick at pointing it out. If you make a mistake, they're really quick at pointing it out. They're not doing it to help you. They're doing it to make you feel bad. They're not trying to help you improve or grow or change. They're trying to make themselves feel better. And this is born out of deep insecurity. Do you find yourself criticizing a particular person? You're constantly seeing the bad in that person? Kind of look at your own heart. Is it rooted in a deep insecurity? It's not about helping the other person improve. It's about making them feel bad. And this is toxic. See, you're not created to thrive in cruel, toxic environments. None of us are. We're not going to thrive. We're not going to grow when we're around an environment that is toxic and cruel and they're always trying to put you down. We can't thrive in those settings. What God created us for is a type of environments that are full of compassion and kindness and constructive criticism. Even when God points out something in our own lives, right? He's kind about it. He's compassionate about it. He doesn't shame us. He speaks the truth, but with love. He doesn't come to crush us. He doesn't come to shame us. He doesn't make us feel bad. Constant criticism leads to feeling like you'll never be good enough. It leads us to isolation. And that is very toxic. This week, I want to challenge you. Is there constant criticism in your heart? Is it rooted deeply in maybe low self-esteem? And that's really what's behind your criticism of that individual. You're pointing out the bad. You're looking at the bad, and then you maybe are so toxic that now you're voicing it to other people, trying to cut the influence of that individual. But it's really rooted in pain. It's really rooted in a low self-esteem in yourself. Or maybe other people are doing it to you, and that's not a healthy environment for you. They try to put you down constantly. You have to separate yourself from that. You have to look at your life and understand that what they're saying is their opinion. And that environment is not going to help you grow. So it's important for us to separate ourselves from that and understand that this is not our problem. This is their problem. And what they think is not necessarily what God thinks. Their view of you, their constant criticism, their constant jabs about you, their judgments. Remember this, not even God will treat us that way. He doesn't put us down. He doesn't shame us. He does it with love, and he speaks with truth, because behind that and all the things that maybe he shares with us to try to align us right, to try to get us on the right track, is all done out of love. Toxic behavior, constant criticism, is not done out of love. It's deeply rooted in a person that has no sense of self-worth, no sense of security, no sense of self-esteem. It's deeply rooted in low self-esteem. That's why it's important for us to understand who we are, to get healed well, and understand that this constant criticism, even in your own mind, maybe you don't say it, but in your mind, it's there. It replays. It's like a recorder, and it constantly plays. It's important to identify it, because if we don't, then it leads to resentments. It leads to bitterness, and that's not going to go well. So watch it this week and start to maybe look at the good side, or watch that toxic behavior around you. You don't necessarily have to stay there. I remember there was this person in my life, and she would call herself my friend. This is years and years ago. But every time I got around that individual, it was almost like there was a constant criticism. It was always the end of that conversation, of any conversation. It always ended in a jab, in a, let me make you feel bad. And then I recognized, this isn't about me. This is about you. This is about something that you haven't resolved in your own heart. So I chose to maybe distance myself somewhat from that individual, because I recognize that our environments are key for growth. This week, I want you to start recognizing them. Start recognizing these toxic behaviors that we've talked about. Have you been around them? Have you noticed them? And this is not to just isolate ourselves from everybody, but to identify them and then set some really healthy boundaries around your life so that you can continue to grow.